Hello again. I'm Eric with Smart Pot Fabric Planters, back with another great episode of the Growing Revolution. And our guest this week is Alex Burnett of Canna Innovations. And he's an efficiency consultant and inventor who we met at the MJ Biz conference last year in Las Vegas and then reconnected recently. So, Alex, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Eric. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for making the time.
Excited to be here.
So when we first met you, you popped into our booth and explaining how you had invented a new product for dealing with trellis waste for growers called the Trellis Trap. And can you explain this product and what it does and how you came up with it?
Yeah, so just a little background. I started working with a grow doing some efficiency consulting and was actually helping them with their harvesting operation and actually doing some of the harvest myself, getting in there, getting my hands dirty, and I enjoy doing that to kind of get that perspective of the harvester. And we were seeing a lot of problems with people handling the trellis waste and trying to use a 5-gallon bucket and putting in a 5-gallon bucket just doesn't work. The plastic trellis is so springy that they tend to waste time disposing of it, and you'll end up twisting it into a ball and then putting it on the in a 5-gallon bucket, or in the or on the table, or sometimes in worst cases it ends up on the floor and ends up being a trip hazard. So I started seeing that at all the grows that I visited, and I started seeing the same kind of issues. And so I started working through some thoughts and developing some prototypes, and went back to the first grow, which is grow here in Oklahoma City, TSGP, and started, gave them the prototype. I wasn't able to stay there the first day, and they took off with their harvest and started using it. And I came back around noontime, and they were just loving it. They were just ecstatic about how well it worked, and the fact that it started nesting up the trellis into a bird's nest. And we could open it up and pull this nest essentially out of really tightly compacted trellis. And so that's what really drove us to taking it to the product that we have. And I'll just show you the product here. It's about the same size as a 5-gallon bucket, but the top of it has the rubber membrane that allows you to take the trellis waste in all different sizes. You can take a very large chunk of the trellis and just stuff it through that rubber membrane and just release it. You don't have to get it all the way through. So that's the beauty of it, is that you're not wasting time twisting up and excessively handling the trellis waste. And that's one of the things I focus on in my lean consulting, efficiency consulting, is helping people eliminate those things that provide no value from the customer's perspective, right? The customer could care less how much time you spend on handling the trellis waste. And so that's how we came up with this. So not only do we have the rubber membrane, but once you get past that rubber membrane, there's a series of 6 different combs in there that allow us to capture that trellis material. And you'll see inside there are the combs, and these are replaceable combs. But what happens is that trellis nesting or trellis net gets captured by the combs. And I'll show you kind of a cross-section view. We actually have one here where we've taken a sample out, but you'll see the sidewall. So what happens is that trellis gets caught in the combs, and periodically what they'll do is they'll go in and do a full stroke where they actually push all the way down into that trellis trap, and then they'll end up compressing that just like a trash compactor. So that's what it works just like as a trash compactor. And then we put the lid on the bottom of it so you can extract it, because it never comes out the top. So once it's in, it's captured or trapped, and that's kind of why we came up with the Trellis Trap name.
Yeah, it's a Genius product. And about how much length of trellis will fit into the trap before it needs to be emptied?
Yeah, good question. I get that quite a bit. We have seen people being able to stuff in 250 feet of 4 feet wide trellis. So it all
Nice.
depends on how many layers they have. We see people use one layer. Sometimes they'll use 3 or 4 layers and layer on the sidewalls, right, to pull it out of the aisles to keep it out of the aisles.
Right.
So
Cool.
yeah, it just depends. Yeah,
So yeah, you were kind of getting into, efficiencies, and time is definitely money, especially in the grow industry. So can you talk a little bit about your professional background up to the point of where you started Canna Innovations, and where did you go to school, and what was your area of study?
absolutely. So I graduated from West Texas A&M up around Amarillo, Texas, and my degree was in engineering technology. And I also have my MBA, so I've got the business mindset. And from there, I went to work for Texas Instruments in their plastics non-metallics department, and we were focused on defense products. And then moved into the silicon wafer business within Texas Instruments, and then that spun off to a joint venture. And so I spent a lot of time in the silicon wafer business, and that is a extremely cost sensitive environment. It is a commodity, right? That's the raw material that's used by computer chip makers like the Intels and the Texas Instruments of the world. And so we were always battling cost, and essentially that's what's happening now in the cannabis world. Is everybody's got to figure out how to reduce their cost to survive, because everybody's enduring this price compression issues that we're seeing. Not only in Oklahoma, it's happening across the U.S. and even in Canada. You're seeing companies that are folding because of excess supply and not able to get their costs down. So that's I spent time in the silicon wafer business, and then I came back to Oklahoma and was in the defense industry, and we built the world's most sensitive explosives detector, handheld explosive detector used in Iraq and Afghanistan. And so during that time, I started working really hard with a consultant in lean manufacturing and brought them in and helped us out. And from there, I took the wand, if you will, and ran with lean manufacturing in our operation there in Stillwater, Oklahoma. And then as a result, I was promoted into a corporate position within a public company called Flair Systems, and I ended up traveling about 60% of the time. I had like 18 different manufacturing sites across 5 countries, and so spent a lot of time on the road and doing this lean manufacturing and efficiency consulting to help drive out cost and improve efficiency. So been an exciting time, and been able to take that same mindset and education understanding into the cannabis world. And there's really not a lot of people focusing in efficiency right now and really specializing in that. And so we bring that from a consulting perspective, and we also bring it from a product perspective.
Nice. Yeah. As the I guess legal barriers to cannabis have fallen, it's a plant after all, and plants are basically commodities. So that's makes sense that businesses are going to have to increase their efficiencies in order to maximize their profits. And really, that's kind of the whole point of business, is making money. So um,
Absolutely.
yeah, without giving away, I guess, everything that you're consulting these companies on, what are some areas that you analyze and improve for these businesses? And can you give us some examples or case studies of your work?
Yes, absolutely. So we've worked with companies here in Oklahoma, and the primary focus, is really going all the way from clone all the way through to delivery. And so, this would include for cultivators and processors, and could even apply to dispensaries. Uh, so most of my work right now has been in the cultivation area, and I've worked with a couple of grows where I have case studies available on my website. And in those cases, the Oki TSGP that I mentioned earlier went in there and focused on their harvesting operation, and saw, through doing some analysis. There's some tools that I use that are focused on the lean principles and improving the flow of the operation and reducing your WIP, eliminating the chaos. And so I recorded probably, 8 to 16 hours of video, and went back and analyzed that. And from that, I went back and worked with a team. We implemented some standard operating procedures. Everybody's kind of familiar with that, but it also, divided out the task associated with what happens in harvest and who should be doing that. And then from that, we were actually able to develop our first product, and we'll talk about that some more later. But that's kind of the focus, is using these lean manufacturing tools to focus on really identifying the waste, eliminating the waste, so that every step within your operation is adding value from a customer's perspective. If you really think about it, what is the customer paying you for? And from a flower perspective, it's everything that adds to the form, fit, or function of the flower. If you think about that, the quality of the flower, the appearance of the flower, the COA, the terps, the THC, and how it delivers an impact to them. Everything else that you do in your operation that doesn't have an impact on those is a waste and an opportunity for you to eliminate and reduce your cost. And it's really difficult to do that when you're in the thick of doing the operation and the process every day, and it takes someone from a different perspective to come in and really analyze your operation. And so that's what we did for TSGP. And so we took their harvest that was taking them about 2 days down to 1 day, and then we also were able to reduce the number of people needed by about half a person. So that half person was able to do other tasks, like get prepared for the next harvest, or to do some transplant or do something in clone while the operation was going on. And so we freed up some people, and we also, like I mentioned, delivered those SOPs. The other one we did was at PHB, growers out in Pryor, Oklahoma. And they were focused on reducing their time associated with a harvest for fresh frozen. So taking a whole plant, they were actually transporting the plant into a cold room and doing the breakdown down to the flower level in that cold room, and then bagging it and freezing it. Well, it was originally taking them 40 minutes. And within a day, we were able to take it from 40 minutes down to 20 minutes for the plant, per plant. And we reduced their space by 75%. So they were occupying a large area of space, and we shrunk that space at the same time. So you can see within a very short period of time, I'm able to record video, provide feedback, and give you direction right during the observation. So that's kind of how we worked with those guys. They were thrilled. I got text that I have copies in my case studies of the guy responding and saying that they were just thrilled with what had happened, and they learned a lot from the experience. And that's part of it, is not just delivering that reduction in time, but really conveying to people why you want to do something differently. How does it impact your operation? And so it's really about making the work easier and being able to accomplish more and more with less effort, right?
Yeah.
You don't want people to work harder. Lean manufacturing has this connotation that it means you're going to work harder. We're going to get lean. Well, that's not necessarily the case. It's really about pivoting your operation toward understanding what the customer values, and then once you really understand that, it changes your perspective. You start thinking about saying, why are we doing this? Why can't we do it differently? But it takes someone from outside to help a lot of people, and that's where I come in.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like the elephant in the room. You're so close to the elephant that you really can't see the big picture. So take someone like you to step back and get that overhead view. Awesome. So, Alex, can you talk about the other products that you sell?
Yeah, absolutely. So the other product that I developed is a software product, and as I was getting into the cannabis market, I realized that it was really difficult to find out where growers were, what their addresses were, and how many were there, how many were there per county, per city, per zip code, things like that. And so I developed a software package for my own use. And as I started developing, I realized, well, this is something that other people might be interested in and subscribe to. So I have it available on my website. People can go and sign up for a subscription and get access to that. But when there are 11,000 licensed businesses in Oklahoma alone, so it's difficult to really understand. If I'm in, let's say, Guthrie, Oklahoma, who else is in Guthrie, Oklahoma? It's difficult to find out. If I'm a grower, if I'm a processor, trying to find growers to get flower from, it's difficult to understand that. And then if you're a supplier, like Smart Pots, if you guys were looking for growers, this is a tool that suppliers can use to find them. And you find email addresses, you find phone numbers, physical addresses, all that's available. It's all publicly available information. So that's one of the products. The other product I mentioned early on was what we call is a harvest station. You can think of it as a mobile workstation. And so one of the things I've seen in a lot of grows is that they have difficulty kind of managing that harvest of what all is going on. And so they end up spending a lot of time walking. So it's excess motion that the customer is not paying you for. And you're doing all this movement of pots or irrigation sticks. If you're removing all of that, if you're hanging your flower, or if you're putting the flower in plastic bins. Well, this harvest station is a patented design that is a cart within a cart. So one of the other things everybody struggles with is space, right? People have very limited space in a lot of their operations, and the aisle space is really limited. And so this was designed to meet that need and kind of organize that all of the tools. If you're using 5 gallon buckets to capture all that material as you kind of go through, as well as clean the table. And so that's one of the opportunities that I see some growers don't realize, is that as they're harvesting flower, why not take care of everything off of the table at the same time? And so there are opportunities. It's just a matter of thinking differently. Some people have concerns about that, about how to do that, and everybody has their own opinion about the best way to do that. But you also have to kind of understand that there are opportunities to do it differently, and continue to get better. And that's really what that harvest station does. Is it allows you to minimize that excess motion and speed up your harvest time, because you're one of the biggest assets that the growers have is that grow room, that flower room, right? So it's kind of like a restaurant table. I tell people, you want to flip that restaurant table, you want to flip that flower room as fast as possible, and not take several days to get it turned over, because that's lost opportunity, lost profits, lost revenue. So
Yeah, theoretically, the more efficient you get your grow cycle, you could even get an extra harvest in a year, depending on what you're doing. So,
yeah, and how many rooms you have, you're exactly right. It does pay off, and so there's definitely a benefit for learning how to do that in a manner that you can reset your room much faster.
yeah. Now, recently, adult use failed in Oklahoma. Were you in favor of that passing, and what do you think are the implications for the cannabis industry there?
Yeah, I was in favor of that. I mean, one of the things that I've seen is I've seen a lot of grows that have gone out of business. We peaked at about 9,400 grows, licensed grows in Oklahoma. That's dropped by 3,000. So we're down to 6,400. And so, and we saw more drop out after the rec bill failed. And so I was hoping that was going to pass to help all the businesses out there for that. So I think as far as the impact, it's going to continue to put stress on the market. Actually, OMA, the regulatory agency in Oklahoma, just published a report, I think it was yesterday or the day before, that I put a message out on Instagram about, and that was how much oversupply there is. And they showed that the supply of 64 grams for every 1 gram of demand, which they're very concerned about because that means that the illicit market is very strong in the state of Oklahoma. And so that's one thing that they're going to continue to address. The other thing it means is that there's a extremely large amount of price compression, right? And so that's definitely a concern for the cultivators that have lasted this long and continue to want to thrive. And in order to do that, you're going to have to look for opportunities to reduce your cost and maintain your market position.
Wow, that's a lot of oversupply. Yeah,
Yeah, so
hopefully,
the normal, yeah, the
yeah.
normal is
I mean,
about
hope,
normal is about 2 to 1.
yeah,
2 to 1 is normal. So, they're saying that based on that we're like at a 32 to 1 ratio. But regardless, the impact to the all the growers is that it's a 64 to 1 ratio, right? And so the price compression is huge.
yeah. So, is there talk that Oklahoma might cap licenses that they're giving out?
Yeah, they did that. They put a moratorium on that. I think it was last year. And at the time, I think it was a 3-year moratorium. And there may have been something that came out recently that may have even extended that longer. So, yeah, they definitely capped it. Oklahoma did a horrible job in setting this up originally. A lot of people
Yeah,
have lost money.
a lot of people liked certain aspects of the low barriers to entry to Oklahoma. I know there was a huge exodus of California growers that went to Oklahoma for that reason. But then, yeah, when you have 64 to 1 oversupply, I'm sure some people are considering other states to work in at this point, or, yeah, just folding like uh, a lot of businesses have.
Yeah, you're right. I've actually heard some people that moved here from California that are now considering moving. I think it was to Mississippi. So, it's just or further, further east. So that was it's definitely coming up. Is that people are thinking this was going to be the gold mine, ended up being the wild wild west of cannabis, as a lot of people have said, and has created a very competitive environment.
Yeah, if they thought Oklahoma was wild, wait till they start working in Mississippi. I'm sure that'll be a interesting show.
Yeah.
Um, but they need cannabis too, and yeah, every seems like every state program has its ups and downs. Honestly, it seems like Nevada probably has the best
Hmm.
setup for producers to, I guess, exist and be profitable,
Hmm.
patients to get access. So, um,
Interesting. Yeah, that's one of the other things I've noticed just recently is the OMA data that they provide on the number of licenses not only includes the processors and dispos and cultivators, but also the patients. And looking at that past couple of days, the number of patients in Oklahoma that are licensed, have a license, has decreased by about 30,000. So that's within, I think, probably the last 6 months or so, 6 to 9 months, it dropped off that much. So 8 to 10% reduction in your demand just from licensed consumers and clients is not going the right direction. So I know a lot of dispos that are trying to help out that and do some gatherings of new clients and bringing new clients to try to increase that. So hopefully that will stabilize, but it has been dropping. I don't know if that's driven by the recession, what's actually happening there. But
Well, I think part of it is there's probably so much black market availability in Oklahoma that people are figuring, well, why pay for my medical card when I could just get it down the road?
no, you're exactly right. I think that's probably the case. Probably the case. Yeah.
Craziness.
Yeah.
So, I guess as an efficiency expert, where do you think wholesale prices are going to end up, and what would you consider, I guess, to be a good fair price per pound?
Well, I hear ranges, of 800 to 1,200 per pound, right? So 1,200 for a top shelf. Maybe, I've heard of just a few, maybe at 1,400, but that's a very, very limited number. And I see states that are, very mature states also that probably are around, I think, 800 to 900. It seemed like I saw some reports back for maybe Oregon and even Colorado that were in that range. So I think everybody has to be prepared for that. I mean, I think the days of having, $3,000, $3,500 per pound is never going to come back. Those mature markets, I don't think that's going to happen. And so you got to be prepared for that and look at all the possible options of reducing your cost. I know a lot of people are trying to get vertically integrated. I've seen a lot of grows here in Oklahoma that have applied for their dispo license or and also their processor license. They want to take control of their own destiny as much as possible, and so there are grows that have open dispos, and here lately I've started to see some of the dispos in my area here start to close, which I'm really surprised that they stayed open this long because not only has there been an oversupply and for growers, but just the number of retail stores, the dispos, has just been phenomenal in this area.
Yeah, the growing pains of a new industry. There's always going to be a roller coaster ride there. So, Alex, this has been really informative and interesting for me, and hopefully everyone else who watches. How can people get in touch with you to procure your services or your products and find you on social media?
Well, they go to my website. We've set up one for the Trellis Trap. It's just trellistrap.com. And then I also, for my services for the Cannoogle, which is the software, and for my consulting services, they can go to canna-innovations.com. And then I also put a lot of material out on Instagram. And if you go to canna.innovations, you will see me there.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast, and looking forward to seeing you at the next show.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much.